Hello. So in this video, we're going to talk about a poetry writing activity called the Golden Shovel. And it gets that name from the poem that inspired this activity, The Golden Shovel by Terrence Hayes. I actually learned about this idea from Jay Chavez's play, How to Clean Your Room and Remember All Your Trauma, which I read out of the Methuen Drama Book of Trans Plays, which I very highly recommend. But basically, this is an activity inspired by what Hayes does in the poem, because in Hayes's poem, it's attributed after Gwendolyn Brooks. Gwendolyn Brooks, for those of you not familiar, is one of the most important and influential American poets. She was a central figure in the late Harlem Renaissance period. She was a central figure in the sort of era of the civil rights movement, etc., etc. And her most famous poem is probably We Real Cool. And that poem goes like this. The pool players, 7 at the Golden Shovel. We real cool, we left school. We lurk late, we strike straight. We sing sin, we thin gin, we jazz June, we die soon. So this is probably her most famous and recognizable poem. And what Hayes does in The Golden Shovel is he pays tribute to this by taking the first word of every line. Well, so starting with We Real Cool. He leaves out the pool players, 7 at the Golden Shovel. But starting from We Real Cool, he takes the first word, or he takes each word in the poem and makes it the last word of his own line. So it's The Golden Shovel after Gwendolyn Brooks, 1981. When I am so small, Dad's sock covers my arm. We cruise at twilight until we find the place the real men lean, bloodshot and translucent with cool. His smile is a gold-plated incantation as we drift by women on bar stools with nothing left in them but approachlessness. This is a school I do not know yet, but the cue sticks mean we are rubbed by light. Smooth as wood, the lurk of smoke thinned to song. We won't be out late. Standing in the middle of the street last night, we watched the moonlit lawns and a neighbor strike his son in the face. A shadow knocked straight. Dad promised to leave me everything. The shovel we used to bury the dog, the words he loved to sing, his rusted pistol, his squeaky Bible, his sin. The boy's sneakers were light on the road. We watched him run to us, looking wounded and thin. He'd been caught lying or drinking his father's gin. He'd been defending his ma, trying to be a man. We stood in the road and my father talked about jazz, how sometimes a tune is born of outrage. By June, the boy would be locked up state. That night we got down on our knees in my room. If I should die before I wake, Da said to me, it will be too soon. 1991. Into the tented city we go, weakened, but we, with a hyphen, weakened by the fire's ethereal afterglow, born lost and cooler than heartache. What we know is what we know, the left hand severed and schooled by cleverness. A plate of weekdays cooking, the hour lurking in the afterglow, a late night chant, into the city we go. Close your eyes and strike a blow, light can be straightened by its shadow. What we break is what we hold, a singular blue note, an outcry singed, exiting the throat. We push until we thin, thinking we won't creep back again. While God licks his kin, we sing until our blood is jazz. We swing from June to June. We sweat to keep from weeping. Groomed on a diet of hunger, we end too soon. So there's 2 variations of this in Hayes's poem, but basically the idea is For this activity, you're going to find a short poem probably, or a line that resonates with you, a sentence, something that is significant to you. And you would write your own new poem with every word of that line being the last word of your new poem. And Hayes does this in two ways in The Golden Shovel. In one, that word, we real cool, we left school, we lurk late, etc. The word itself is the final word of the poem, and it's a solid word. So, when I'm so small, Dow's arm covers my sock, we cruise at twilight until we find the place the real men lean, bloodshot and translucent with cool. So you see, in the first section of the poem, everything stands on its own. And I think that's probably the easier way to approach this the first time you're trying this activity out. It's often going to make more sense to try and construct lines that have the word solidly at the end. But the second variation, and I think this is more challenging and more advanced, but it's also a good thought exercise. Hayes tends to make the words of Brooks's poem part of words. So he puts a break within them with a hyphen. So into the tented city we go weakened. We dash line break. Weakened. So the word is weakened, but it's broken over two lines so that we is still there. Ethereal, real being the word from Brooks's poem, but in this case it's incorporated into another word. Cooler, COOL dash line break ER. So this is another variation of this where you can incorporate the language of the poem, but not be so. I don't want to say limited by it, but not be sort of tied to those specific words. You can incorporate those words into longer words and utilize just the pieces of those words that you actually want at the ends of your sentences. So what is this? Why do this activity? What's the upshot of this? So one reason is that this is actually a really good way of paying tribute to something or someone, a writer, whatever it is, that's influential to you. There's a lot of different ways of doing this through poetry. The poem after someone else is a really popular common form, and Hayes has done this in a really unique way. Often this will be something like a response poem or an update or a parody or an address to the original poet or writer or whatever it is. But Hayes has done a very, very interesting thing in putting breaking Brooks's line through his whole poem at the end of it. Another reason that this is a good thing is it's really challenging, I imagine. You have to figure out how to take someone else's words and make them not just work with your poem, but work at the ends of your lines. And that's, I think, a very difficult thing to do. So this is a really good skills activity, and it's a good way of thinking about the organization of language within your poem. So these are the reasons I think this is a worthwhile activity. I think it's a really good one, and both Brooks and Hayes are amazing writers. And so if you are not familiar with their poetry, I would definitely recommend it. It can be this can be a huge turning. I don't want to say huge turning point, but these are two poets who can definitely influence you and shape the way that you think about poetry and about language.